are back for another episode of Get a Load of This. From the Silver Creek Studios, I'm Jared.
I am the referee for the evening.
I'm Rebecca.
In this corner. Yeah, we are back. We just had a little chili mini cook-off upstairs.
Yeah.
Not really. We just tried.
We tasted chilies.
I made some chili. Ryan brought his chili. Both are really good.
Both
Rebecca
equally
doesn't
good
have any
and-
leftovers.
and- no, because
Because it's
when
that good.
you don't
right?
have leftovers.
Sure.
My daughter just texted me and said it was too sweet.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. And definitely my chili was sweet.
Yeah.
And probably sweeter than I've ever made it.
Well, you have a
And
lot
I thought
of
it was good, but
different things that add sweetness. You
yeah.
have the peppers. You have your brown sugar, a little bit of brown sugar in
Yeah.
there, and then you also have that chili sauce.
a little bit in that one, yeah.
So there's a lot of sweets going in there.
Normally, I don't do the chili sauce or the brown sugar, and that made it, I think, probably too sweet. But
Yeah.
I don't mind it sweet.
It's not
Yours
bad.
was really good, though.
Yeah,
like
thank
crazy good. And we all sort of agree. We think it's the onions, right? That's the
Oh,
secret.
I know
Yeah.
it is. There's no
That's the
doubt.
Lots of
secret.
onions.
I mean, that's my grandma's rule. There's no such thing as too many onions.
Yeah.
There's
The amount of flavor that they give, and it's always different. Like depending on what you put in with it, it develops a different. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Yeah.
onions
that's
is the
awesome.
way to go. And we don't put peppers in our. I don't put peppers.
I
in
don't
mine.
either. But I think I have a feeling that Mom might have done that in the past. Put a green pepper, chopped up a green pepper, and thrown
That's
it in there or
possible.
something.
Yeah, and I don't think it's right or wrong. I just
Yeah,
don't do it.
right.
You know.
I wouldn't turn up my nose at it. I'd be like, that's
No.
reasonable. Now corn,
that's messed up.
Carrots, nope.
Yeah, but again, like he was saying, everybody's got their own like idea of what chili is. You know, some people put carrots in chicken and dumplings.
That's weird.
I
Right.
feel like that's like Campbell's does that, right? Campbell's soup has little bitty
I don't know what the hell they're
carrots in
doing.
it.
That ain't fucking right. Not in chicken and dumplings.
Well,
Oh,
I mean,
chicken and-
yeah.
chicken noodle soup. Sorry, that's what I
Yeah,
was thinking.
chicken noodle soup.
Okay,
One
sorry,
thing.
Yes,
Chicken noodle
dumplings.
soup's one thing.
No,
Chicken
yeah.
and dumplings.
You got to
Yeah,
get
you
on the
gotta get
mic
right on that
because you got
Sorry.
way louder when you did that in a good way. Yeah.
so
Anyway.
chicken
You
and
sound good
dumplings
on the
is a
mic.
white food, right? So that's
Right.
when we were
Starchy.
kids, we had all the white food dinner. We'd have chicken and dumplings with sauerkraut and
boiled potatoes.
potatoes.
Ooh, and then they ruin the meal by adding peas.
And then you throw peas in there. That was the only color is that we had
God.
peas.
Yeah.
And
Peas
but
ruins
other than
every
that,
meal.
if you don't
Peas
eat
do
peas,
ruin everything.
So her whole plate was just all white foods. It's like you
Yeah.
don't know where shit ends and begins.
Yeah.
in
That's
there,
one of the
you
only
know?
meals that can mix for
Yeah,
me
but not
because
peas.
usually I'm like, I need a divided plate because I
Yeah.
like my shit to touch.
Right.
But that one, with the exception of the peas, I'm like, well, I can all.
Yeah, I think that,
together.
that everything can mix on that.
Well, I'm going to take that to work tomorrow for a chili cook-off, so I'll let everybody know
Yeah.
how I do.
It's good. It's good.
We were talking in the outtakes or the pre-show discussion about education in America.
Don't call them outtakes. Bill doesn't like that.
Yeah, I know. I don't. Whatever.
Go ahead and say it.
So-
Go ahead and say it. You know you want to say it.
Fuck Bill.
There you go.
But so a friend of mine sent me an article today, and it kind of got us going on this education topic. And it was talking about all over the country, but particularly in Illinois, there's these quiet rooms. I had never heard that term before. I've never seen it used at our school. They actually have a map, an interactive map you can click on different schools, and ours says there's been 0 uses of a quiet room. So
But there
that's why
is
we've
one.
never heard of it. I guess.
Interesting.
And apparently, there was legislation around 20 years ago that came up with sort of rules on how you could and couldn't use these quiet rooms.
Okay.
And it's really never been enforced, and there's not a lot of documentation. So if you put someone in a quiet room, there's nobody saying that anybody, they do take notes. That was part of the deal, was there's a teacher outside the room writing down what the child is doing. But nobody's required to look at those notes. Like, it's just this
There's
weird,
no standard.
vague. Yeah, it's just
No
this,
one's holding them accountable for
Yeah.
what's happening and why they're putting them in there.
And apparently
messed up.
it's now, because of that, it's getting abused. So the reason for these rooms was supposed to be if a student is being basically violent, in danger to themselves or others, teachers, other students, whatever, and there's nothing else you can do, the last resort is put them in this room where they're by themselves. And a lot of these rooms are padded. There's no windows. So it's kind of like a insane asylum cell or something. You know, it's what you imagine.
Yeah.
And there's pictures of it, and it's exactly what it looks like.
I can't
How do
believe
they-
that. I can't believe that someone approved padded rooms
Right.
at a school.
How do they get the kids there? So if the kid's acting out,
I
how
guess
do
you
they? So they have to
grab them
manhandle
by the
these
ear
kids.
or whatever. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
they got the darts, the trank darts. You know,
No,
and
that's not funny.
it'd be a lot more fun.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
And in that sense, I kind of understand it. I mean, there's going to be problem child who is violent and maybe has a learning disability and isn't, under control. And the last resort is we've got to separate them and get them away from these other kids for whatever reason. I mean, that happens, right? We've all seen or heard of that kind of thing.
Right, but I feel like there should be teachers or staff on hand to be able to know how to handle, children
this is
like that.
We're not prepared for this, so go lock them in a room.
So go put them in the padded room.
You know what they did when we were kids? We didn't need a padded room. Number one, they had, if there was a kid with special needs that was...
He went to the resource room. He or she went to the resource room.
They had a special class. They weren't even in school with the rest of us. There was a separation. But now, I mean, and I think that it's for the most part,
with
it's
a specialized teacher as well.
Right. With a teacher with skills that they know how to handle these things. So I think including some of these, special needs kids in regular classroom is a good thing by and large. But there's always exceptions, right? And if you have a child that is disruptive to the rest of the class, it's of no benefit to anybody, to that kid or to any other kid or to the teachers to try to force this inclusion. There's a reason why the special education teachers existed and probably still do, just are underutilized. So they didn't need a padded room. They would send that if there was. So if a special needs kid, they had a place to go send that kid. If it was just a kid that was an asshole,
went to the principal's
office.
Went
to the principal's office and sometimes got his ass beat. I mean, corporal punishment is not cool anymore. But
you just got yelled at, and you knew your parents were going to find out about it. And that was
our
scary enough.
Mr. Howler had multiple paddles hanging on the back of his door. I never saw one get taken down from the door, but just the fact that they were there.
I visited that office maybe a couple times, and I never got paddled. I got rubber fingered. That long giant hand of his with the boing, 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 boing.
Yeah, he was, and he was intimidating. But that's all you needed, and you didn't even need the actual corporal punishment. You just needed kind of the intimidation factor of it. Not that that's a solution either, but you just need these teachers. If this is the profession that they're going into, they're trained for it. They should be. If they're not, then we need to start that. They should be able to diffuse these situations. They shouldn't just be saying, "All right, get in your box, kid."
Yeah,
right.
And I think that was the problem that the article specifically was saying was it's supposed to be an emergency, a last resort. We can't do anything else. We got to do this.
Well,
and it became the first result. It was like this kid dropped his book off his desk and they're like, that's it. Go to the quiet room. Well, wait a minute.
That's unnecessary.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there were these horrible quotes of these kids that are in the room yelling out, I'm all alone or I'm scared, and they're whatever. These some of them are little. They're not all like you picture a 16-year-old or whatever. Some of these kids were 7.
Shut up, you pussy.
And
go bounce off the walls.
No, that's awful.
Yeah. And then the teacher they have to write notes. So there is someone observing. They don't just leave them in there and walk away, as far as we know. But they're writing notes for hours of this kid in this room.
So there's someone assigned to just sit there and take notes. That's troubling because
if
what's
they're
that
not
person
applying
doing?
Those notes to anything.
And what's this person doing when there's not a kid in the hot box? What's it? Just sitting around waiting for another fucking derelict to show up in the padded room?
I don't know.
What the fuck is going on? This is in Illinois? Mm-hmm. This is fucked up.
But you said it's apparently everywhere.
Well, yeah, it's not just Illinois, but Illinois was the focus of this one, but they said it's all over the country.
What I said earlier is anti-teacher. I'll go pro-teacher a little bit with this statement, that if the teachers weren't afraid of the repercussions of anything that they do, any type of discipline that they enforce, I mean, they can't even talk to the kids nowadays. It used to be that first it was, oh, you can't touch a kid. You can't grab him by the arm and say, get over here, which our teachers did. Grab us by the arm, throw us in the hallway, and sit down and shut up and write this 400 times. Now they can't touch him. That's where it started. Now they can't even say anything to him.
Right.
Because if they say something to him, they'll hurt their feelings. Or they'll, and all of a sudden now you got this emotionally scarred child. No, fuck you. Your kid's an asshole. He's not emotionally scarred. He just got a dose of fucking reality.
Right.
And so the teacher should be given some flexibility, maybe not to rip their ass.
A little bit of understanding. I think that they're put in that position where they're dealing with all these kids on any given day with varying personalities, temperaments, triggers, all those types of things. And
parents
they're one
like
person.
So-and-so over here.
Any parent. I mean, because we're all sensitive to if your kid comes home and says, Mrs. So-and-so was mean to me today.
Right.
We're instantly going to get our hackles up. We're going to automatically assume the teacher was being an asshole. When in reality,
Yeah, I don't. I assume my kid was being an asshole. Like, what'd you do? What the fuck?
Maybe whenever your kid's 7,
is to go that way and to take the teacher's side, because I've never, even when I was a student, I had my issues.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I don't. I'm just saying instinctively we're going to protect our kids. So, at jump, you're going to believe what they say, and then you get rational. Right. Okay, well, wait a minute. What'd you do? But I don't know. I think it's tricky for the teachers. It
is. I feel as hard as we are on teachers these days and the education system and the teachers unions and all that.
They don't get paid enough. They don't get paid nearly enough.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Well, I'll tell you what. So my nephew was over the other day, and he's going to college, and our kids are all at that age where they're trying to figure out what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And money is one of the concerns. They're like, I want a job that pays a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of them mentioned something about being a coach, and it was like, well, you also got to be a teacher usually if you're coaching like that. And then we started talking about teacher salaries, and I said, you can look up all the teacher salaries, at least around here in Illinois. You can.
It's all public record.
Yeah, you can look up teacher salaries. He's like, really? So he looks it up, and I had said, because he was like, teachers don't make anything, and I said, but they make more than you think.
They do.
Well, then, I was like leaning towards, I think they make a lot more than you think, and I've looked up some teachers around here. Some of them make a shit ton of money, but I was surprised how many we saw that they've been teaching 20 years and still were making in the 50s. And I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah. A lot of teachers work for the pension.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
They get to retire when they're 50 or, maybe not 50.
Now, there were some that were making in the 80s and 90s, if they...
But they're teaching at the upper levels.
If they got their master's and they went back and got certified
and that
something
includes
else.
Their coaches' pay and things like that, all the other add-ons that they get into. And I also think it's definitely before tax. They also, they don't get, at least in Illinois, they don't get anything taken out for Social Security. They're exempt from Social Security, and I think they pay a little bit.
Does that mean they won't collect Social Security?
They will not get Social Security when they retire.
Right.
But
no,
that's
get the bonus of their pension.
They get the Illinois teachers' pension, which is almost broke, as far as I can understand. We'd have to do some research on that, but it's not solvent. It has issues, and it's because they let teachers retire very young. These teachers live a very long life, and they're all collecting their full pension. There's not enough people paying in, and there's too many people paying out. So it's a bad model and it's broken. It seems like it's this wonderful world of everything's going to be great. I get to retire at 53, and I'm just going to go buy my boat. Yeah, it's great for you, but they've just, I want to say like 5 years ago, maybe a little more than that they adjusted the rates that people would get paid out and the dates that they would be eligible. So if you started teaching after X date, then now you have to work a little bit longer, and you're also, or if you retire at the same age, you're going to get paid out a little bit less.
Well, most times they only allow them to take a certain percentage. You can't take all of it.
Well, right. But what I'm saying is that the model changed for any teacher that started teaching after a certain date. They had to change the model in order to try to keep the pension solvent.
To keep some money in it.
To be able to pay and everybody that's sucking off of that teat. So, but it just doesn't work. So, but that's another issue altogether. I mean, teachers, as far as their salary goes, what they make per year, and there's a bunch of teachers that will probably be all pissed off about this. They work 9 months out of the year. So we could do the math. I'll try to pull up a calculator here. So if they work 9 months out of the year and they make $50,000, so that we can do the easy math. Hold on. We can do that $50,000 divided by the 9 months that they actually work out of every year.
But they get paid over 12 months, though.
You can,
sure, they can choose, right?
I think, but yeah.
So basically, that works out that they're making about $5,500. We'll call it's 55.5555. So it's $55.55 per month is what they make
pre-tax
per working month.
Pre-tax per. Well, that's what...
Or is that...
Yeah, that's per working month.
Yeah.
So if they were to work 12 months out of the year, they would make the equivalent. We'll just take that 55.55 times 12, and that salary then comes out to 66,000, Satan's numbers, 66,666.
Right.
That's not a terrible wage.
No.
It's nothing to be upset about. Plus, they have opportunities, just like any position, to work overtime, to coach,
yeah,
and or to teach a club or to
get involved in some other way.
Do all kinds of things. So whether you work for the phone company, which their base salary isn't, and they're risking life and limb in a lot of cases, climbing poles and shit like that. The only way that they make $100,000 a year is because they're taking up overtime and they're doing extra shit. That's not a terrible wage. The other thing is, I'm on a rant.
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say they work 10 months because they don't really get their full summer off. They usually stick around after the school year's out. They've got to do some cleanup things.
How much time do you get off for Christmas?
1 day.
How much time do they get off for Christmas?
A week.
A week, I guess. Yeah.
Well, maybe a little bit
more. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they go through to early January.
Yeah, but I see where he's coming from, though.
Do you get a spring break?
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, we get paid vacation. We do get most.
Well, yeah, you get your 20 hours or whatever. However,
we get paid vacation.
You get your PTO, but they get that too. They get that too.
On top of their...
Do they?
Right. Yeah, they get sick days, they get vacation, they get PTO, they get sick days, plus they get...
Do you get vacation days? Can a teacher just say, I'm taking Friday off?
Yes.
I honestly
and
don't
it's
know.
honestly becoming more and more... Like, I remember whenever I was in school, that the times that we had a substitute teacher were few and far between.
It was always exciting.
Yeah. But it was like, what's wrong with Mrs. Smith? It's like, she's really sick, or her daughter's really sick.
Right.
Those were rare acceptances. Now my kids come in like, I'm not a substitute today, we didn't have the test, it won't be, the next day, teacher didn't show up again today. It's like, that teacher's never fucking there.
Yeah.
So not to say, again, not all, but I think the math, if you call it 9 months, either way, it's not terrible money. I think that the potential to make a lot of money is there,
but they also have to make it stretch 12 months, or they got to work a summer job, and they probably would gladly continue to work through the summer if they made
they wouldn't
$10,000 more.
You don't know enough teachers. Follow them on Facebook and how excited they get.
Yeah, but
one of our I hope she doesn't listen, but one of our family members who is it's ridiculous how much she anticipates her little break. She hates her fucking job.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know a lot of teachers that hate it.
Why would you choose that job?
Well, because they didn't know they were going to hate it when they started it.
Change.
And now that's what they do. It's hard to change after 12 years.
You're going to know pretty quick that, fuck this. I had a good friend of mine, Steve, that he was a teacher for, I want to say 4 years. And just like, this sucks. I mean, he knew what he was getting into, but he just realized
But what are you going to do with an education degree?
Well, now he works in the financial services world. He makes pretty goddamn good money. I mean, he took his education training and he came over to the industry and was doing training, which perfectly applies. And then he just got promoted through, and I think he's doing some sales leadership or something like that. So, but he worked his ass off to get promoted. Now, he left all that pension on the table. He had to start over with his retirement. He had, everything had to start over, but he did it early enough that he was able to make that adjustment.
Right.
I bet you, not all, but some teachers are out there like, well, I would, but I really just like having my summers off. This is really nice. I get 3 months off of every year that I could just sit around and do fucking nothing,
So, I mean, in their defense, if they have kids of their own, then they get the time to spend with their own children.
They don't have to pay for daycare.
They don't have to pay for the daycare.
Yep.
So they take those 3 months off and, our 2.5 months off. They do have to go back early. They have to do planning. Sure. They have to do continuing education for themselves, all those types of things.
Sometimes they have to pay for it themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that I see both sides of it.
So I'd like to think the ones that don't like their jobs, quote, don't like their jobs, are maybe doing it because they realize the benefit to kids. We want to help teach the next generation. I'm willing to kind of dislike my job a little.
That are like that. I think the majority of them know what they're getting into. If you don't, you're dumbass for not looking into it. If you decide that you want to go to school to be the guy that changes light bulbs on the top of fucking radio towers, and then you get there and you're like, well, I'm afraid of heights.
Right.
This is stupid. Well, you're dumbass for why would you go down that path? You went through 4 years of school, potentially more to get your fucking master's degree.
And you're deciding what you want to do, you're idealistic. You aren't thinking about the administration and the parents.
We all make adjustments.
Yeah.
They're dumbass for not making the adjustments. Furthermore, this is a joke I'm stealing from Bill Burr. I think that he used about military. He's like, it's sickening that everybody thinks that every military veteran is a hero. You're not. His line is like, you're telling me there's not one asshole in the military? There's more than one.
Oh yeah,
there's real assholes that are in the military.
Right.
Now, majority of them are great, and we appreciate their sacrifice. Yeah. But they're not all fucking saints.
Right.
There's some that are assholes. Same goes for police and fire. We appreciate their first responders are awesome. But I guarantee there's some assholes in them. We know
there is.
We know there are.
Yes.
So The same goes for teachers.
Agreed.
Everybody holds, they're doing God's work. They're just, if it wasn't for teachers, that, oh my God. There's some assholes, and there's some that are just completely self-involved and have only their own interest at heart. And they can be at the beginning of the career, they can have those types of tendencies, or they more often than not, I think it's at the end of their career,
right? Whenever they're just
checked out, and they've been delivering the same fucking curriculum over and over again for 40 years, and they're just like, I got 3 more years and I'm done with this shit. And everybody knows that what the curriculum is. Like, the parents had the same fucking curriculum. Here's my notes, kid. I know,
or they didn't in the case of Common Core and everyday math or whatever, where the parents can't even help their kid because it's so different.
Brian absolutely insane. He's like, why are we just guessing?
So why do you think that
why
they
are we guesstimating?
Introduced Common Core?
I don't know.
It was
I honestly
easier for the teachers. It was easier for them to deliver it.
The way that it was presented to me was that it was a spiral concept. We're going to introduce more concepts this way if we just touch on them.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, but I feel like mastery is probably a little bit more important, especially with core math, with addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. And then you need to understand decimal points and fractions. And from there, you should be able to do anything.
Well, those are the building blocks for
so then they can be
math.
applied.
Right.
Once you learn those, then you can apply them to the advanced math. So why are we just touching on them and then expecting these kids to be able to receive the information for advanced math and understand it and be successful? I think they're setting them up for fail.
Yeah. The good news is that most all educators agree with you now.
Yeah, finally. But my kids are both out now.
Right.
But it didn't take long for that experiment to fail. I don't know how many. I'm sure there's still states out there that are stuck on this Common Core.
It's just not.
But the majority of people are like, yeah, that's a failed experiment. I think that the common knowledge now that
and maybe there were
work.
some kids that were successful with it and great for them. Me personally, it's all I can speak about is my kids were not successful with it.
Right.
They struggled. They had to call you.
Well, right. And in a lot of cases, kids our age, your kids' age and my kids' age, they were introduced midstream.
Right. They had started with one kind, and then they switched over to this.
With TJ, I think it was like 3rd or 4th grade, all of a sudden, everything switched. And he was like, well, what the fuck? I was just doing it this way, and I'm doing it this way.
In first and second and 3rd grade, Mallory was mastering. She had to memorize her multiplication tables, and she had to recite them. And each week you had another set, and then all of a sudden that just stopped. And it got to the point where I'm like, well, if they're not expecting you to know them, let's just make up a cheat sheet because I don't know what they want you to know.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
That's another factor, not just with math, but the retakes. How many retakes do you recall having in junior high and high school?
None.
No.
None.
You took the test or the quiz, and whatever you got, you got. It's like almost not every time, but there's a lot of retakes.
Test corrections and retakes. Like, constantly test corrections.
So why would they do that?
Well, it's because they want to get the success rate up.
They just want to churn these little bastards through, and they don't really care about the end result.
Which is sad because I don't think that's I'm going to say it one more time. I don't think that's the case straight across the board.
No, it's absolutely
I don't think that we can generalize in that respect. I feel like there's still teachers out there that really want to be a teacher because they love kids and they want to teach them. And
there's teachers that you and I, all of us, you can name them. Mrs. Cooney, she hated me for like the first half. My 4th grade teacher hated me. For some reason, we finally, we figured each other out and we got along great. And she was still she's one I remember from grade school. I remember her as a great teacher. She sent me letters over the summer of shit that I was interested in. One, it was like Amelia Earhart. She saw an article. We did something on Amelia Earhart, and she found an article. She mailed it to me over the summer because she knew that it was interesting to me. So huge impact.
I never had her. She was my poetry teacher, though.
She was great, and she also taught me hey, you need to memorize poetry. It's good for you. It's good to read these things, and it's good to train your brain to memorize these things. And I crushed that shit.
I was pretty good at it too. I like Mrs. Reed.
Which one? The 6th grade?
6th grade, Mrs. Reed. Yeah, I didn't have Mrs. Osborne whenever I was there, but I didn't have Mrs. Osborne.
I had them both, and they were both great too. But Cooney and White later, she got married. She was awesome. She was awesome. So we all have those examples, and those are unfortunately, I think they're the exceptions. They should be the norm.
It's 35 years ago.
Well, true. Yeah,
so
maybe 35 years ago, they were the standard. Maybe they were the norm.
The expectations change now.
Right. Nowadays, I think that there's far too many of the just just getting it done. I think they start with good intentions. I think the majority of teachers start with good intentions. I think that just like any job, you get burnt out. You get tired of going up against the monster that is administration or whatever, and you just check out. You're like, oh, fuck it, I just got to get this done so that I can get back to my pool in 6 months.
But I also feel like it takes a specific personality. I don't say a special type of person, but honestly, I do. I think that there's people out there that are going to be far more successful at being teachers than others. And if you're empathetic, if you're patient, if you're just pretty chill and zen by nature, I think you're going to be a little bit more successful than someone who's high-strung and anxious and short-tempered.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just obvious to me.
Yeah. I think,
who we need to have on this is Dave. His daughter goes to and has her whole life, and his wife helped start up a Montessori school.
I think
that's a very different approach.
It is. It's apples. It's not apples to apples because I think there's different standards in a Montessori school than that are applied in the public education system. So I think
I've been and Dave knows I've been critical of that approach. But I don't. It's working for them. I think their daughter is very smart and would succeed in a public school too.
I'd be interested.
But it's hard to
him about that topic too, because I'm an advocate for. I don't think the government should be involved in our schools. I think that we should privatize all education. I think that there should be competition in education, and if it's a school voucher,
now we need to have Rick on because Rick agrees with you too.
I think everybody should be given all the money that we give for schools. You should get it all, and then I can go buy my kids' education wherever with the tax dollars that I'm putting in. That's the main reason why my kids go to public schools, because I'm not going to get double dipped on for education. I can't bring myself to spend twice.
Right.
So they go to public school, and I try my best to get the most out of it. I talk to the teachers. I go to every parent teacher opportunity that I get. And some people think my wife and I are weird that we have a high schooler and we went to parent teacher, and we walk through school. There's no other parents there.
Wait, you're weird? Why?
Because we go to parent teacher meetings.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a rarity nowadays.
It is.
Yeah, we've kind of eased off of that.
Yeah, and
going to those.
But so you have to milk it from the public education system. It's not going to just come to you.
Right.
So anyway, if you were to say, government, get the fuck out, Department of Education, you're done, adios, all you teachers, now you got to compete for your job. And now it's a supply and demand, and the laws of supply and demand apply. So your teacher salaries, that problem goes away, because if you're a good enough teacher, people are going to want to send their kid to you, and you're going to be able to demand a higher rate for your skills, and so everything is going to balance out.
So
at that point.
why do you think? Where did it start, and why is it still that way? The public education and the unions. Well,
unions
okay.
and
there had to be
the government
schools before unions.
The government
right?
wants to be involved in everything, and I think it started with good intentions. The Department of Education
provide something that everybody should deserve.
To provide this common need. Everybody wants their kid to have an education.
Because let's face it, I mean, if everything was private, you wouldn't be able to afford to send your kid to the best schools.
You don't know.
So
we don't know. That's the other thing. So you take a poor underprivileged student.
I mean, definitely some people wouldn't be able to afford it.
Right. So, but they're able to send their kid to a public education right now, right? So they're able to send their kid to Waterloo High School if they want to, because they live in this area. Regardless of what their tax rate is, they get to send their kid to that school. So what I would say is here you live. There would still have to be some public element to it. Look, it's not a perfect science. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not an economist, but I would say that that's where the school voucher system comes in. So underprivileged kid gets a voucher. He could take that voucher and he can go to Vianney. He can go to CBC, Chaminade, whatever. Or if it's a girl, you can go to Corrier Zoo or whatever. And it may not cover everything, but it's going to cover a big chunk of it. Now that, or maybe if you're underprivileged enough and you were,
maybe it will.
Then it will cover everything, and the government will help you out there. But now that's at least the parent and the student has a choice of where they go.
Take the same dollars that are going into your public school and give it to you to put into whatever school you want to go to.
And now enrollment goes up at X school, even if it's Waterloo. It could be that it's a public school, but now there's a customer provider relationship. Right. As of right now, they don't look at us as a customer. They don't look at our students as a customer. They should, because they are the consumer of the of the service that they're providing. They don't look at it that way, and that's unfortunate, because that means
they're also the product of the service that they're providing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, they really should be looking at...
If they take pride in their work and their product, yeah. But it's not the way that it's looked at. Instead, it's I don't know. It's not the relationship that exists in education. I don't think they look at them as customer. They definitely don't. If I was to walk into the high school and say, "Look, I'm the fucking I pay your paycheck," that's frowned upon, right?
That's not going to go well.
But it's true. It's true.
Of course, it's true. Everybody knows it.
Well, sure.
It's not like it's a bulletin.
Their customer, and they if just like if I walk into, I don't know, a car dealership that I buy cars from, they're gonna be like, "Hey, how you doing, sir? Good to see you again."
Right.
And they're gonna kiss my ass to try to sell me another car. That's how the school should be treating my students, or my children, and me. Like, hey, yeah, your kid's doing great. Is there anything that we can do to help him? Is he struggling anywhere? What can we do to help him improve in these areas? Right. Because they want to keep my kid as an enrolled student at that school.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Create competition, and everything gets better.
On the flip side of that,
capitalism is king.
A friend of mine sent me another article about schools in New York. And
one more thing, real quick, before I don't want to forget, schools in New York. We'll go right back. I want to know how Dave feels about that, considering that his kid goes to a Montessori school and his wife founded one. I know that they're liberal for the most part, which you would think they would be pro-teacher, pro-public education, but the fact that their kids go to a private school and his wife founded one, it'd be interesting to get his take on how he
that's
reconciles.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure.
So
we should have him on.
New York.
And I read the whole article, but I know I'm going to get it wrong, so I apologize. But I believe it was referring to public schools, though certainly some of them had to be private. But it's almost the opposite problem there. So there's all these people in the city, and only so many schools, only so many good schools, and you have to apply and be accepted. But
like magnet schools or charter schools?
I guess so, yeah. But it's not only the one you want to get into now, it's the one you want to get into later, high school or whatever. And you can't get into that high school unless you've gone to one of these other good ones, right?
Right.
So now you're just trying to get into one that's considered good, but now you're putting up with and dealing with the agendas of the teacher or the curriculum or whatever that maybe you don't agree with, but you're desperate. You can't, if you decide I don't like this teacher or this principal or whatever, I can't just take my kid and go somewhere else, even though you can. They're packed too. They're all full. They don't have enough spots. You're on a waiting list. And you need the reputation of this school, so it's like, it's a totally, even though it sounds very similar to what you're saying, I'm just going to go to this school or that school and apply, but
the dynamic
it's almost the other
shift.
problem.
Yeah, no,
the schools have all the power.
Things will be introduced with it. And so I've had this conversation with other friends of mine, one of whom has a wife who's a guidance counselor. And we both have mutual friends who are teachers. And he said, well, what do you do about like the social element of and the community that comes with school, right? So you go up to tailgating and you watch your nephew and your daughter and your niece cheer and your son played sports and all those great things. And my kids are in plays and the community comes together and goes to these plays. And that's a great thing. And you would lose some of that. The thing is, we've already lost it. We've already lost that because inner city schools, whenever they did the desegregation program in the 70s into up until the late 90s, they took all these students out of Roosevelt High School in St. Louis, Missouri, which was a powerhouse in the 50s and 60s, probably 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and their community that came out, it was Friday Night Lights, but in South St. Louis, and there was real community, and they had a great football program, and it was great. Whenever the white flight occurred, and everybody
Roosevelt. This is where you went, or where the inner city was?
Actually,
Roosevelt.
where our parents went.
Okay.
But it's still down there. But it's I think it's
it's probably a magnet school now.
It might be. I don't know. But
I don't know for sure.
It went down the tubes, and I don't even know if they have a football program. But all that, because they took all the best athletes and they bust them out to the county to go to random schools. Some went to Melville, some went to Oakville, some went up to St. Charles. Who knows where they went? They scattered them all around.
Right.
So now all the great talent that was in that community to play football or basketball or whatever, it's gone. And now there's no community in that area. And that there's no way that's going to help them. Now they thought they were helping, but it wasn't. It was just absolute.
What was the reasoning to
because the
school that was there was not very good, and so
because the school
give them an opportunity to go to a better school.
Was broke.
It was mismanaged.
The money was mismanaged, and they couldn't do the renovations on the schools. They couldn't get them to the point where they were.
So that means they couldn't attract teachers that wanted to teach in these decrepit
they
facilities.
Couldn't pay staff, all those things.
There's other problems that come along with it too. There's crime, and there's kids that were, the whole shift that happened in inner cities where fathers tended to not be around, and so now you have more crime and drugs and gangs and things like that, and that seeped into the schools, and parents wanted to do whatever they could to get their kid out of that environment. So they would say, put them on a bus for an hour and a half and send them to the county because I want them to get a good education. And that worked for a great many of them. It was a great success for a lot of kids, but it was terrible for the community, terrible for the schools in the district. Those schools may never recover. They've been struggling for
real hard
30
to see it
years
recover.
to try to balance things again.
Got to get people to want to live in those areas again.
Right. And even so, go back to Dave living in the city as a perfect example. I mean, he lives in the city, but he's not sending his kid to a St. Louis public school.
I'm sure he wouldn't say anything different. I mean, these things are not. That's not our opinion. These are facts.
Yeah, they're pretty out there. I mean, they're pretty, cut and dry.
Well, they moved to the city to go to the Montessori school. Yeah, they didn't live there before that.
Did they have to live in a certain geographic area to go to that school?
I'm not sure. I would think anyone could go there, but I don't actually know that. I think it was just in order to make it practical to go there.
Yeah, so, again, I don't have it all figured out. I'm not an economist. I'm not an education expert by any means, but I have strong opinions about it. And I've seen things. I mean, I've got, 3 kids, and I went through the public education system myself. I had great teachers, but I also had some that just were shit and that shouldn't have been there. And that was in, my junior high.
Here's
high school,
what I would predict would happen if you got your way. Mm-hmm. So if everybody got their stipend or their what did you call it? Their voucher. Yep, their voucher to take their tax dollars to wherever they want to go. Right.
By the way, this has been done, I believe, in Minnesota, and I think in some areas in Texas also. They've actually done a school voucher system.
Really?
Yeah. Betsy DeVos, who's the current Department of Education head.
But no one lives in Minnesota, so it's
under Trump. She's hated. She's hated by the left because she's never ran any schools or whatever. But she's a champion for the school voucher system and for magnet and charter schools for options, just providing options in education. Yep. So sorry, go ahead.
Here's what would happen.
I was to get my way.
Yeah. So if everybody had a voucher and they could just kind of go where they want, pick and choose which school, private school. Would there even be a public school at that point if everybody had?
I guess there could be as long as they can compete. Right.
So
as long as they've got kids showing up.
I think that's what would happen is the public schools would no longer be able to operate because they don't have enough tax dollars coming in, not enough kids. And I think that's what would happen all over. Private schools would start up because, hey, guess what we can do now?
Sure.
We can, and then they would go out of business because they only have 12 students there. And then what would end up happening, you would have it all funnel into a few big schools that can't support everybody. And now it would be just like we were saying, you're branches. Desperately trying to get into this school and you get rejected, and now you settle on local podunk school that only has 2 teachers and no basketball court and blah, blah, blah. Right. And because there'd be too many people taking their money all over instead of saying, look, we're going to put these people's money here and these people's money there.
I think another viable, feasible option is that yes, the public schools would struggle, enrollment would drop, and they would basically close down. Then what would happen is that the private sector would come in, buy that school, buy that basketball court, and impart their model of education into that school and be able to accommodate more and more students.
Well,
I think
and the more kids you've got, the more affordable you can make it for everyone.
Right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is that with straw, kind of a loose parallel. Let's take the United States Postal Service, right? We've introduced, we didn't introduce, but just by nature of society, competition has been introduced. FedEx, DHL, UPS, Amazon. There is now competition for the United States Postal Service.
Sure.
And they are struggling. There also, technology has advanced where we don't really send a lot of bills anymore. Everybody does paperless. And there's really no need other than junk mail. There's not a whole lot of purpose for the USPS. So when given options, and what we've shown is that FedEx can get our shit to us in a day. Amazon can get sometimes the same fucking day if you live in the right area. Yeah. DHL and UPS are the same. Could do a day or two.
Yeah.
So creating competition and a better service, whereas the United States Postal Service, now, they have express and they have overnight. But what would you choose? If you're going to pay $14 to get something from here to Sheboygan, Wisconsin,
FedEx.
You're going to go FedEx or maybe UPS.
Their reputation.
Yeah.
And the insurance and peace of mind that you have with it.
Right.
Just because that's all they've ever done.
Right. So that's...
I feel like all of that shipping is a house of cards that's going to fall soon. Like,
how's stuff going to get to us? Drones?
Well, I'm saying you can't have free shipping on.
Oh, someone's paying for it. You're paying for it.
Well, I know.
Paying for it.
We are, but we're
with
also
our Prime
getting
membership that we pay.
Yeah,
that's paying for our.
Definitely, and we absolutely pay for that.
Of course,
but it's $100, $110 a year or whatever, and we have shit delivered to our house
Scalability.
every day.
But do you know how many
for free?
People pay for that Prime membership?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like, we all fell prey to it. Yeah. Free shipping.
But
next day,
in order to compete, Walmart has free shipping, Target has free shipping,
Well,
everybody has free shipping.
The only way that
now.
they'll be able to compete is
they have to.
Again, you get to that scalability. So Amazon is obviously at the advantage right now because you see their truck on our street. It's stopping at every third house because everybody's getting shit. They're introducing, like, you want your Prime Day, right? I may have seen that, right? So you can pick your day. I want it to be Tuesday. And they're probably going to eventually give you some benefit. Like, look, if you go with Tuesday, because 4 other people on your block have done Tuesday.
They already offer that.
I think you're right.
I don't know if there's a benefit other than just, making life easier. Probably cutting down on carbon emissions and things like that, which is all good. But that's why it's scalable. They're going to win because they're not losing money.
Right.
They're actually making more money because those same trucks are just making more deliveries.
But again, I agree with you. The scale is the difference maker. But I think what's going to happen is then eventually they're going to make you pick a Prime Day. Yeah. And if you want it for free, it's coming on Tuesday. Even if today's Wednesday, you're not getting it for a week.
The word there is free.
Right,
and most of us are going to be like, I'll take it on Tuesday.
I think they're losing their ass on shipping in order to try to get us used to it, and now they're going to start bait and switching.
Well, since Amazon, I don't know if they fired but their relationship with FedEx has been strained. Maybe defunct completely, and now you see Amazon trucks all over the place. You don't see FedEx trucks. You see a UPS here and there, maybe FedEx here and there, but you see Amazon trucks all over the place. And just wait, the next month we're going to see those fucking things. They're going to be littering the streets.
I will have to say, I think that businesses, like in where I work, it's FedEx and everywhere. Because we send documents and
we still do a lot of UPS
things
at our
that need to be done,
right?
And so maybe it's just in different areas.
You know what started pissing me off was we would notice it at Christmas, and maybe they all do this now, but FedEx started handing off packages to the postal service at the last step, and I'm like, and a lot of times it would take an extra day or two after they would do that.
Because now you got the fucking government involved.
Yeah.
Well, but also because they took the time. Exactly. Like, just bring it to my house. You had it on a truck.
Well, not only
that close.
I paid for FedEx so that I could get it here in 48 hours.
Yep.
And
except now we didn't pay for it.
Exactly.
It was free.
Well, and now you see the videos of the Postal Service workers just chucking shit out of the back of the truck. They don't, I mean, that's one example. There's probably more than one, but that's exactly the point that I'm making. I think it applies for education. It applies for many things, that you need to create competition in order to make sure that you're giving a good product to the consumer. And whenever we get the government involved and there's no competition and there's no incentive for them to provide a good product, well, they're not going to. Look at the DMV. If you go into the DMV and say, all right, I can do it here where I can deal with bitchy, crabby DMV workers, or I can go next door and I can get the same driver's license at a privately owned, privately ran driver's license facility.
And it's $1 more, but they're pleasant.
Yes. Yeah. Where are you going to go? And they're quicker. You're not going to have to. They're not going to make you sit in line.
I'm paying the buck.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm paying the buck.
I know you got to use the restroom, and I don't know what time we at here.
I mean, we could wrap it up.
The DMV thing, and you probably did it too recently with your daughter. But when I took Chuck there to get his license, we sat and waited forever.
You got to be smart, man. You got to go on the right morning.
Right. It shouldn't matter, though. And I agree. I should have been smart, and I should have gone at a different time. It shouldn't matter, though. Watching these people work,
or not work.
Well, yeah. They would wait on a customer, take their sweet ass time with one customer, and then a break. Every single one of them wait on a customer, then a break. Not exaggerating either. This is I will put it. They got cameras.
I've
Call the
been in
Secretary
there
of
and
State.
never seen them go on a break.
Yeah, well,
Oh no, I've seen that. I've seen that.
Then we were there so long, I had to pee twice. So when I walked to the bathroom, you can see in the office where the boss lady sits, and she's in there playing Candy Crush. And meanwhile, there's 40 people sitting waiting for someone to come wait on them. There's plenty of computers that she can come out and help pick up the fucking slack on. But no, her fat ass is sitting in there fucking playing a goddamn game while we got nothing but time to kill. Nobody else has got a fucking job.
I will say the last time I went to the DMV, I went right in.
What'd you get there?
I was I was like second in line. They were pleasant. I was in and out in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, some of us work for a living, but
I went straight to work after that.
But that's I'm just giving you shit on it. But that's my thing with all these. I had a phone call to I think it was a bank. I forget what exactly I needed, but I needed to speak to the bank about something, and I took time out of my day. I was like, all right, it was 12:30. I had a window of opportunity here. I called. They said, oh, you need to talk to Tom. Okay, let's get Tom on the horn. Tom's not here. I said, well, when will Tom be back? Well, he's at lunch. He'll be back in about a half an hour. I'm like, well, I'm not available in half an hour. So is there somebody else there that can answer this question for me? No, it's only Tom. And I was like, well, I tell you what. How about you guys make time for me? This is the time that I've set aside to make this phone call to you. I am the customer. That should matter.
Right.
It didn't matter. And I was like, well, fuck, I'm at their mercy.
Tom's lunch was more important.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But it's simple things. Like they could just cross-train somebody else so that they can also answer these questions.
Right.
But that's, no job security for Tom at that point. And that's a privately held bank that there's it's just bad customer service model. Sure. But that's what service people tend to forget is that I have a job. Mm-hmm. When I'm calling you or if I stop by...
I'm taking time away from my job.
Right. So remember that the next time you call somebody and they can't wait on you because oh, well, no, they had to go to the DMV. So we're short a guy today because that motherfucker's locked in the DMV for fucking 8 hours, So next time that bitch is playing Candy Crush, I don't know, she has to fucking fight an overdraft charge. I could see that happening for her. And she can't get a hold of somebody at the bank because of the fucking DMV. Anyway. I get angry about that stuff.
The ripple effect of Candy Crush.
Right.
Jeez. Yeah. Right. So it's a home breaker,
That's right.
Yeah.
I got frustrated. Stop playing.
We've done a lot of bitching about the education system and
I got
public
more on
tax.
that topic.
Oh, Ryan would go all night long if we let him.
On the teacher. I mean, and again, I want to be clear though. I don't.
I'm trying to let you be.
Think all teachers. I don't think all teachers are terrible. There's some great ones out there. There's some people that really care about the students and care about the future. And
I'd like to think that that's the majority. I really, really, really want to think that that's the majority.
I would like to as well, but unfortunately, I don't.
I mean, I think you're right, but I'm really trying to be just very optimistic at the fact that it's the majority.
I don't know. I feel like it's probably the majority, but maybe not.
I think we're just being optimistic. Yeah, I think that the bottom line is that across the board, you've got exactly what he said. You've got a lot of teachers that are burnt out. You've got young kids that are coming in to do the same job as these older people.
Right. Well, and these teachers are frustrated too.
Right.
Not only are their hands tied from a discipline standpoint, their hands are tied. They're being held to the test standard in some cases. They're being held
and they're being told how and what to teach.
Right. They're teaching to the test, or they're trying to teach just to get them out of the fucking school.
Well, it's all about the standardized testing.
Right. So
that's all that matters.
They're being held to standards that they don't have any control over. Right. And they're just frustrated by the circumstances that are put upon them.
But I still think, don't be stupid. Like, don't enter into that profession knowing everything that anybody can know. We can all hear these things. We can all learn these things, and expect that you're going to feel any different about it. Like, if you want to do it because you're doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
It can be a decent
I feel
living.
like if you were to go to any university that has a large teaching school and you were to give all the kids in like an education program a truth serum, just you give them that shot in the arm and say, hey, why do you want to be a teacher?
I like my summers off.
I would say that the top, if you said, give me the top three reasons why you want to be a teacher, for 95% of them, one of those top 3 reasons would be like, summers off ain't bad. I think that's
it's a valid reason.
Summers off, spring break,
if somebody
winter
offered
break.
you 2 different accounting jobs right now and one of them had 3 months off,
the follow-up question absolutely. The follow-up question would be like, great, so you're willing, because you're going to get your summers off, you're willing to sacrifice with a slightly smaller wage, You're willing to sacrifice some of your sanity. You're also willing to maybe buy some supplies for your own classroom, because these are all known things that teachers complain about, that they got to go buy tissues and things like that.
I don't understand how, because there's 7,255 boxes of Kleenex dropped off at the beginning of every school year.
Yeah, and Sharpies. They
And
got
Ziploc
fucking
bags.
Sharpies and dry erase markers coming out their fucking
hand
ears.
I will
sanitizer.
say, again, to defend the teachers, as much as we're complaining about, whether they get paid enough or not, or how much time they get
I don't
off.
think we're complaining about it. I think that these are things that.
Oh, I'm complaining about it.
Well, no, I'm
People
saying.
do.
I'm saying. Go ahead. I'm
No.
sorry. Just
Well,
go.
I was going to say, they put up with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
They might have an administration that doesn't support them.
Agreed.
They might have
Shitty parents
a
that.
curriculum that they
Yeah.
don't agree with.
Right.
Oh, that,
They
I
have
never, I never got the point about parents.
that don't
they're
help.
the worst.
Yeah.
I feel.
That come in and complain.
Right.
They've got to buy their own supplies
Yeah.
because the tax dollars didn't.
So that's the
buy
biggest.
enough.
Despite teaching,
It sucks.
teaching to the test or teaching to just to get the kids out of their way, they've got parents who, most parents nowadays are not engaged in their child's education. They look at public school as just a babysitter, and they don't engage. They're not there at home pushing their kids to do better. That's a lost art, that went away. I mean, there are parents that still do it. I like to think that my wife and I take an active role in our kids' education, but there's so many that just don't give a fuck, and they just let their kid do whatever they're going to do.
I like to think that Brian and I both took an active role, not as thoroughly as you and Tammy did, but I mean, I love my girls, but they didn't have. I mean,
Don't you think Ryan's kids' teachers are so glad that Ryan and Tammy take an active role
I
in their
think
education?
some of them probably really are thankful
I know, I'm
to have
kidding.
parents
Some of
that
them
are
are, and
involved.
some of them hate.
I know a
hearing
couple
my
of
voice.
coaches
Sure.
who are probably like, "Oh, fuck,
yeah.
here we go."
And I know them too, and I'm damn glad that they don't want to hear it from me.
Honestly, though, so I said it the other day. We went to the football and cheer banquet.
Yep.
And my nephew's a senior, my daughter's a junior, so they were doing a lot of that stuff. Anyway, all of the coaches spoke at different times. I'm not a fan of the head coach for various reasons, but one of my favorite coaches in that whole staff, and there's like 12 of them, is Mason. One of the guys that I know you had an
Do you
issue
like
with.
him?
I really do like him.
Yeah.
In high school, I completely get where you were coming from in the junior high basketball aspect.
Yeah.
I agreed with you at the time, but having seen him now and the way he treats these young men, we'll say, and he just is like, man, I wish he was the head coach. He's just an assistant,
He
and it's
may
like,
have changed
man.
because we have a new athletic director. Maybe my letter hit home.
It might have, yeah.
I wrote a fucking just an awesome letter.
It was
I've still
beautiful.
got it.
Is it like, did you sign it, Ryan Davidson?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it wasn't anonymous.
No,
No,
not
I
at
sent
all.
it. I sent this letter to
He owned it.
the coaches, basketball specifically, the athletic director at the time, who's no longer there.
I do feel like,
And I think I sent it to the superintendent as well. And I quoted the mission statement of not only the school
I
but
think
the
he sent
athletic
it to the
department.
governor too. Like
Yeah, and I didn't go that far. But I said, look, you guys want to put this stuff out there. Here's your mission statement. It's all flowery and wonderful or whatever. Meanwhile, I got a kid that's coming home after every fucking game crying because his coach, aka teacher, also his math teacher, is treating him like he single-handedly lost the fucking game whenever he gets 9 seconds at the end of a game that they're already fucking losing.
Right.
And that's a real thing that happened. And it's because these coaches get so amped, and I get it. I've coached. I understand it. You get amped up. But it's your job to fucking USA that shit before you talk to your kids.
Right.
And this asshole Mason, he required a 48-hour, 24-hour cooling off period. You said his name before I did. He required this cooling off period, but he didn't take his own advice whenever he would go into the locker room after these boys. After these boys would lose a game.
That's just basketball. Come on, that's
And I honored his 24-hour cooling off period, and 24 hours later I fucking ripped his ass.
Yeah.
And I just like, how can you think that that's the right way to treat these young men?
What
They're
was his
13
response?
or
I'm
14-year-old
curious.
kids.
what do you have to say?
I don't remember all the details of it, but basically, well, a kid can't show up to practice. You expect him to get more playing time whenever he can't even show up to open gyms and practices. And I'm like, that doesn't even address. That's like a scapegoat, right? That's not. It doesn't even address the point that I'm bringing up to you. Yeah, the guy's he's a douchebag. Another thing is that he kept saying my kid didn't show up to open gyms. He would send out, and I got a copy of it, the email about open gyms. And there were several kids that it just wasn't sent to. And but he punished the kids that didn't show up, even though he didn't send them the notification about the open gym.
and open gyms were by the way, in the middle of the summer when our kids were playing baseball and traveling and all that. So,
and they're, quote, optional.
It wasn't practical
to go to throw that shit in your face whenever,
But did you point out to him that your kid didn't get...
I'll show you the letter that I wrote. I pointed out a lot of things. And a
that
lot of
being
it wasn't...
said, I like this coach.
It was a lot of it. It wasn't me just like, my kid this. I actually said specifically, I said, look, I think I have a pretty balanced approach. I know my kid's not Jordan. I know he's not going to play college basketball, but I also know that
this is middle school basketball.
It's middle school basketball. You don't know. He was undersized at the time, and he had pretty good skills. Equal to many kids that were getting a lot of playing time. Plus, how do you know if you never give the kid a chance?
Right.
The purpose, and in their mission statement, it specifically states, is to grow these young student athletes and teach them how to deal with adversity and teach them how to be leaders and be a part of a team. Well, how are you doing that if after the game you're like, hey, you guys over at the starting five, you guys did a great job. You guys need to work on things. I told you not to take a shot in the last 30 seconds.
That's awful.
And he said that. I told you guys not to take a shot. It's like, well, they only got 30 seconds on the court. Of course, they're all going to try to make their fucking moment happen and take that shot. And they got
singling the kids out. That's terrible coaching.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely terrible coaching.
Yeah, Ivers, the other one. He was copied on it as well. So yeah, Ivers and Mason. I actually said, I was like, you guys may think that you're Bobby Knight and Phil Jackson, but reality is you're a mediocre math teacher and a driver's ed teacher who happen to coach basketball. Realize who you are and what your skill set is, and then maybe you'll be able to understand why these kids don't like you and why they don't respect you. I mean, it was magnificently worded.
It was great. We should read it on the video on the podcast.
In a little while.
I'll have to track it down
I
in
use
my...
the restroom.
All right. Well, we could go on and on and on about the education system and our thoughts on it. I would love to have Dave on and Rick.
An educator.
Both of them would be good.
Good.
Especially because Dave's wife is directly involved in the education system. I think that'd be great.
I think it'd be great to have a public educator.
I agree.
Too.
I agree.
I think I may know a couple.
Yeah, well, let's get some teachers in here. All right. Well, until we do that, I'm Jared.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Rebecca.
And get a load of this.
That's
Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, I couldn't
go
say
ahead.
that.
You've been watching Breitbart.
Yeah, you just read the headlines. You don't have to read the articles. Just read the headlines, and you'll see just the differences. Is kind of entertaining how the news outlets. I mean, obviously Breitbart, Fox News are right leaning, and then you go to CNN and Huffington Post, and it's just. I mean, you should compare them side by side. Everybody should be like, It'd be great if there was somebody in the middle. I don't think there is anybody. It'd be great if there was some balanced viewpoint so that we could get to the bottom of things. But anyway, as I was reading all these headlines on Fox News, there was an article about, and I forget the state that it was in, but a music teacher, who had given an assignment to the students to, I don't know if it was read this poem aloud in class, but it was a vulgar poem. It was about, I'll have to look it up. But
was the teacher aware that it was vulgar? Or?
Oh yes, yeah. And so one of the parents, took obviously took issue with it, right?
Sure.
So, and Allen Ginsberg is the poet. He's deceased, but he was a beatnik. He was part of that group, a very very much a hippie. Was in Vietnam protests, and so the name of the poem is Howl. Howl. I don't even know if maybe I can read the fucking thing here, but apparently there's.
Are we going to start this thing? Because I feel like he should read it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. It's a long poem. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Okay.
But
read the dirty parts.
Well, yeah. That's what I'm trying to find. So he was a gay man, and I think some of the poem, the themes in it talk about homosexual sex and also heterosexual sex. But so what? And I guess there's a lot to this, but the students the Board of Education had approved something in a book that included this poem, but it was censored. And this teacher said, I want you to fill in the blanks. And so he filled in the blanks with, fucker in the ass or things like that.
What?
Yeah. So, and then also there was a song that he had them, I don't know if read or analyze, that talked about sexting, underage people or whatever. And these students are about 16 years old, right? They're like freshman, sophomore age. And so obviously dad takes issue with it. Teacher does not he's still teaching, and the superintendent has apologized and said, well, we've corrected the matter. We've had a conversation with this teacher. If you look at the picture of the teacher, he's definitely a beatnik himself. He's wearing the stocking cap and looks like glasses that Nana would wear, our grandmother Nana, those horn rimmed, but it's a dude. So it's like, you're kind of not surprised that, and his name's Ryan something. I forget, Acuna, I think was his name, was the teacher. And, but it just aggravated the piss out of me because that's what's going on. And I mean, not all the time. There's great teachers out there, and I know some of them, and we all know some of them. We've met these good teachers. But there's these others that are out there trying to indoctrinate and trying to brainwash our kids into these political ideologies. This Howell poem talks about basically, the evils of capitalism and the evils of American society. And it's like, why the fuck is that needed to, I mean, look, I think it's fine to read poems like that from a historical standpoint.
Right.
But as long as you're giving a balanced view,
right.
And there's another poem that's equally as effective that talks about the evils of communism or socialism or the benefits of, read Ronald Reagan's address that talks about the shining light on the hill. Read that along with this, and so we get at least some balance.
Yeah.
But that's not what happens.
I agree with you. On the flip side, though, is there's always those stories you hear where a student remembers the one teacher who taught them to think for themselves or think a little differently, and they read this poem that nobody was willing to read or whatever,
Right.
And then they think back and like, that was my favorite teacher. I'm so glad,
Sure.
But then you got the ones that take advantage of that and push their own agenda on these little kids.
I think this teacher probably thought, like, I'm changing lives. This is great.
Maybe in college, I think that's an approach that they could potentially take.
Maybe. Yeah. By that time, they're 18 and they can make their own decisions.
Exactly.
You don't really have choice over the curriculum. Well, we don't have a choice today over the curriculum. We've given that choice over to the government, basically, and to the Board of Education. And we trust that they're going to make the right decision for our kids. And I'm telling you, and my kids are public educated, and I don't intend to change. And then they come up with
everyday math. Dumb idea.
Right. And I don't trust that they've got the right curriculum. So what I do to counteract that is I monitor, I help them with I make sure that they're actually learning this shit. Because I know that they could make it through school and graduate and not learn a goddamn thing. But so it's my job, it's every parent's job to monitor things and make sure that not only are they just getting through, but they actually understand some of this shit.
Sure.
Some of the comments on the story were like, it's funny. We can't teach our kids cursive anymore. We can't teach our kids how to do regular long division. We've got everyday math. We've simplified the curriculum to make it easier. Honestly, to make it
for
easier,
the
lowest common denominator, but also to make it easier for the teacher. It's not about the student. It's about, in my opinion, making it easier for the teacher. They don't really give a shit. Not all of them, a lot of them, and the unions especially don't give a shit about the student. They care about the teacher, and they care about keeping the teacher happy and making the day as
I'm sure the idea, though, is if it's easier on this teacher, the teacher can be more effective in teaching the students or whatever. But I guess
in theory, I could see that. But unfortunately, it doesn't take...
I'm sure that's how you
don't
sell
have
it.
To dig too deep to see that, okay, so you're going to make it easier on teachers going to be happy, but you're also shortening the day by another hour.
Right.
Like, let's take our school district, for example. We have, so before late start Monday, we had, all the teachers had their work hour, right? So I think they're, by union rules says that they're only allowed to teach like 5 hours out of every day or something like that.
I don't know.
Someone will correct me on that. But they're only allowed to teach so many hours a day, at least at the high school level. And then they're required to have a work hour. And then I think they're also required to have like a study hall hour, which is also a work hour because they're not fucking teaching. They're just, watching derelicts.
Keep quiet.
Right. And but then they come up with like, oh, well, they need more preparation time. They need more time to get their curriculum ready. So we're going to give them late start Monday. It just seems awful convenient. Let's do late start Wednesday instead of late start Monday. Can you adjust? No, you'll want it on Monday because that's what everybody fucking wants, to come in late on Monday. It's so fucking obvious what they're doing. So it's just, I can see through the bullshit. People would say I'm a conspiracy theorist and I just hate teachers. No, I think I smell a rat. I smell bullshit, and I don't think it's right. The fact that they take these Teacher Institute days, it just so always happens that they're the Friday before there's a holiday on Monday. It just happens to be,
I kind of appreciate that, actually.
I mean, we all just overlook it because it's
vacation.
like, hey, it's not too bad,
Yeah.
But the reality of it is like, well, wait a minute, there's people out there that single parents that can't manage that now they have to pay for daycare for that child for that extra day, and that no one's thinking about those people. They should be, Because these, if you're going to do that, then at least come up with an alternative, that some daycare option form or whatever.
Right.
Because our taxpayers are paying for that education, and parents expect for their kids to be cared for those hours of the day, X days of the week, right?
Okay,
sure.
Let's start this.
Yeah,
We
I
got
got
more to
strong
talk
opinions.
about with education. So